Hey everybody, welcome to the DUSK tutorial series. We're going to go over today the basics of opening up Tabletop Simulator and creating your first deck. So, the first thing you'll need to do is download Tabletop Simulator and subscribe to the DUSK beta mod. Once you've got that going and you crack this open, we go right in here and we select the Create button. We're going to go with Multiplayer, and you'll see you have your server name, so you can type in anything you want there. I've labeled it DUSK. Then you can also type in a server password if you want it to be private. Right now, you can put any number of players, up to 10 it looks like, but we support 2 to 4 for the mod itself, so that's probably going to be your best experience. So let's go ahead and click on Create a Server. Now you're going to see all of your classics and DLC and the things that you're subscribed to, so we're going to click on the DUSK Arena of Shadows beta. Now, something to keep in mind here is when you first load this in, it will bog down your computer pretty heavily. I've noticed that with Tabletop Sim, so there will be a brief pause where everything goes silent and your computer gets a little unresponsive. Don't worry, that's just kind of the nature of the Tabletop Sim that I've found so far. Everything works pretty fine after that. So let's click on DUSK here and say load. Alright, not too bad. So, as you'll see here, you have your play space and some tokens to keep track of things. We will get more into that in some of the future quick videos, but for right now I want to keep it really easy to manage. Let's just get into what the basics are. And so this is going to be deck construction. Everybody in DUSK starts with these cards here. The first one is basic action types and like a quick reference card. So if you flip that one over, it'll have the round phases, and then it'll tell you what kind of actions you can do in your turn and all that kind of stuff. We'll get into that more later. The big thing that you need to know about for building your deck is to start with your core or basic deck here. Now the basic deck is 13 cards. You can right click on that and put search, and you'll see what that comprises. You have 2 of every number, 1 through 5, and everybody's going to start with that. Then you also have 2 wild cards. Wild cards can be played for any value, any single digit value, 1 through 9, so that's going to give you a little bit of, well, randomness in your deck and the ability to respond to numbers that you might normally have enough of. Then the last thing that's going to be in there, your 13th card, is called the Tilt. The Tilt is a free action. You can do it at any time. It allows you to either re-roll any die, yours or someone else's, or to draw 2 cards. So it kind of gives you a little bit of burst or card advantage when you need to pull it out. The last thing that you've got is your health tracker card. We're also going to have chits in the main game, but for now this is kind of like the quick version of that. And then you've got this little thing over here that you can kind of, when you get hit in these locations, you can drop those down to mark when you've been hit and when you've taken wounds and how the game plays. So, that all being said, let's take our core deck here. I grabbed one. In order to grab the full deck, you just need to hold down on it for a couple seconds and then you'll grab everything. So I'm just going to pull this over here for a little bit easier view. Alright, so this is your construction deck, or your table. This is where you're going to pull off of things in order to make your main deck. And there's some basic guides over here on how to make decks, just a quick refresher in case you need that while you're in the game. But the first thing we're going to start off with is actually choosing our phantom. So right here you see the 4 core phantoms that are involved in the core set for the basic backer. You've got the Unbreakable Maiden, Fated Monarch, Lady of Gristle, and the Marrow Knight. These 4 give you a pretty good sampling of just overall gameplay mechanics, but just so you've got it, we've also included the 3 expansion sets that are available on launch as add-ons. Expansion number 1 is kind of our Sins and Dark Impulses expansion. It's the Marquis of Meat, the Dancer of the Black Veil, the Keeper of Fears, and the Madame Itzamort, or the Lady in Her Death. Then expansion 2 are the Other Realms. This is the Mistress of Elf Fates, Celestial Empress, Alabaster Queen, and the Whisper Thief. And then over here we've got expansion 3, which is the Elemental Courts. That's the Ember of Lost Hopes, Emissary of the Rime, Nimbus Caller, and the Sleeper in the Dark. So those are your core choices to start with. We'll stick with the core phantoms right now. And the first thing that you want to do is actually choose the phantom that you're going to play. So you can look through these decks by right-clicking on them and clicking, where is this here? Well, first off, let's get into this. Every phantom comes with a passive card, and that's going to be on top of the deck, so that's a little bit confusing at first, but that way we keep it together and you have an easier way to pick it up. Let's go with the Unbreakable Maiden here, since I picked that one up already. The number one thing you do when you choose a Phantom is you grab the passive card. And the passive card doesn't get shuffled into your deck, it gets kept face up in front of you. And it's an ability that is unique to your champion or Phantom that only you can do, and that has a special thing that kind of gives you some flavor. So, in this case, the Unbreakable Maiden has the Armor of Sacrifice. As a reaction, she can exhaust the Armor of Sacrifice and change a hit location roll to be a critical miss, so it helps her be more protected. When you use these, you right-click on them, and then you just click Flip, and that becomes exhausted. And every passive has a different refresh condition. So for this one, you can refresh Armor of Sacrifice by suffering 1 damage. And when we say suffer, that's a voluntary choice. So it's not when you get hit by damage, you actually have to choose to suffer to take 1 damage. And you can do that once per hit that comes in at you. So if I wanted to, I could take a hit, let's say it's a critical. I can say I'm going to make that a critical miss, and then I'm going to take this and I'm going to flip it back over. And now if I wanted to refresh this, I would roll 1 damage against me, and maybe I have a way to mitigate that or to counteract it, or maybe I'm just hoping it's not a critical. So, or perhaps when I'm playing in a group, I could save someone else from taking damage and take that damage onto myself. So she's kind of a support class, but she's also very much a tank. So we've got your passive now pulled to the side. The next part is to actually construct cards that go into the deck. Every Phantom has a stack that's called their gifts, and of those stacks there are 9 separate cards here. So we're going to click on this and do search. This allows us to bring up all the cards that are available to you, and you'll see there are 9 over here. When you choose a Phantom, you take 4 of these cards and add them to your basic deck, that core deck that we started with in the beginning. If you're starting out new, what we've done, you'll notice in the lower left corner there's a star. We've chosen 4 of these cards that are kind of starter or quick play guys that we think is a quick way for you to get in the game, and that should be fairly easy to understand and basic for you to do your first deck construction. But there are other ones that have skulls on them, and these are a little bit more advanced, or maybe they're just a little bit more meta, or might involve other strategies with other cards. Totally viable. It's up to you if you want to play with them right out the start. We kind of recommend you stick with the starters, just do your first round. Everyone takes about 1 or 2 games, and then they pretty much have it down, and they really dive deep into this. So up to you guys how deep you want to go right out the bat, or right out the gate. Take your time, don't rush. It's a pretty fun game regardless. So in this case, I've got my 9 gifts that I'm going to choose, and all the gifts are these yellow gold cards. I'm going to just choose the starred cards. So I'm going to take her Shield of Tears and drag that over there, drop it on top of my deck. Then I'm going to take her Bulwark, put that there, and she also has Fortifications, and the last one here is Aegis. So those are my 4 champion gifts. That is step 1 of creating your core deck or your combat deck. So now let's move down to the next. We'll talk about skills. Skills can be chosen by any Phantom. So whereas the gifts are specific to the Phantom that you've chosen and no one else can get those, skills are things that anybody can mix in. So there's a lot of randomization and basically personal choices as to what kind of things you like to play. So in the core set, we're including Chronomancy, Curses, Divination, Shadow, Tactics, and Transmutation. We'll go over a little bit more of these in some updates and just kind of give you the basic ideas of what they are, or you can dig through the cards yourselves, but we feel these are kind of a nice core set that give you a lot of opportunities and different playstyles that you can pick from. And we're going to be releasing, if the Kickstarter does well, hopefully, fingers crossed, additional stretch goals. We've actually made over 20 different skills and over 20 different weapons that we've tested out, and as things go well, we're just going to hand those out and give those to you as more of your core set. So you'll be able to get more and more options and more game styles as the Kickstarter progresses. But for now, let's keep going with this deck construction. You need to choose a skill. So you choose something that sounds cool. That's the way that I would start out. It's pretty hard to make a deck that doesn't work, basically. Actually, I've never seen anyone make a deck that doesn't work. You can definitely have stronger synergies or deeper meta, but sometimes you overthink things, and it's just better to go with the thing that's cool and have some numbers and kind of play it out. So in this case, I've got a defensive champion, the Unbreakable Maiden, and I'm looking at things that might want to support that. So she does a lot of persistence, which is a good thing for curses. Divination kind of lets you dig through your deck, but I'm actually going to go with Shadow for her, because Shadow has a lot of variable things in it and a lot of defense as well. So I'm going to double down on my defense and see if I can really get myself to be more resistant and resilient to armor damage and other things, and kind of mitigate some of that passive damage that I might take through using her special ability. So let's right click on that one, do a search. Same deal, you're going to have 9 cards. Every set has 9 cards, and you're going to take 4 of those cards and add them to your deck. So once I've chosen my set, Shadow, I can look these over. I have starter cards as well, so let's go ahead with those, just for simplicity's sake. I'm going to add these to my deck as well. So first one, Cloak Body, Shadow, just drag that over and drop it on my deck. Then over here is Lift the Veil, I'm going to grab that one. Next up, we have Umbrage, I'll take that over. And then the last one is Tenebrous Form. So I'm going to take that one, drop that right there now. So I've now chosen 4 of the 9, added those to my gifts in my core deck. I'm going to close that, and I'm going to move on to my final bit of customization. What would a combat game be without some sort of weapon or a way to really dish damage? So these are the most aggressive things. Right now, same deal skills. We've got 6 of these that are going to come with the core set, and more that will unlock. Every one of these is unique and different in the way that they play and the skills that they'll be able to leverage on the table. So attack cards are a little different. We'll get into that in future rules and how to play, but they're really meant to trigger their abilities when you're attacking. So they get very aggressive in dealing damage and or supplementing your attacks on the field. So we've got the Libram, which is kind of an AoE explosion type magic book. The Rapier, which is more precise and allows you to choose where you're going to hit or gives you ways to modify that. The Spear, a little bit more defensive and reactive. Sword and Shield, very defensive, helps a lot with blocks. Warhammer, a more offensive, and when you hit things with armor, you get a chance to do more damage. And then we've got Knives, which are all up close and personal, and they have a chance to bleed people, which makes them discard. So I've gone really heavy in my defense here. I think instead of going with like the traditional sword and shield for her, I'm going to go with something a little bit more aggressive. I think actually Spear is a nice choice for her because it has the special ability called Brace. So let's crack these open. Search. Same deal again. You've got 9 cards. You're going to see that you have 4 starters. The one thing that's different about weapons is we tried to make weapons a little bit more simple so you have some reliability in your deck. All 4 of the starter cards are going to have the same ability for a weapon, but that ability is going to be unique to the weapon. So in this particular case, the Spear has Brace, which is, you may play this card when a phantom moves, then attacks you in the same turn. This card makes an attack ignoring range before resolving the attack. So it's kind of like a first strike or a preemptive hit that can be used on defense. So since I am already defensive, I kind of want to lure people in. I'll use the rest of my cards to mitigate damage, and I'll use these to get cheap hits off as they come at me. So the 4 starter abilities, as I said, all share something. They share an ability, Brace or Defend, Precise. The 5 complex abilities are also unique to that weapon, but they tend to be a little bit more advanced and a little bit less reliable because you can't get multiples of them. The only multiples you can get in this game are actually the 4 starter cards in a weapon set. So in this case, I think we'll go ahead and dig in. I won't spoil a whole lot of these cards for you, but we're going to dig in and grab some of the starter cards, and then we'll grab one special card. Why not? So let's grab that Thrust, and this is also one, Fortifications. And let's get Impale, and then the final one, I'm going to grab Pendulum Strike, one of my favorite cards actually. This one's neat because when Pendulum Strike is played as a block, it actually hits the attacking phantom once for every attack that targets you. And then they can switch those attacks to become blocks, so they have a way to respond to that. It kind of swings the momentum and forces them to decide whether they want to share damage or whether they want to go full defense. So let's grab that Pendulum Strike, add that to my deck, and there you go. This now has all of our choices in it. You'll notice it's 25 cards. You have your 13 basic cards, and then you have your 12 special cards, 4 of each stack that you've chosen. Then I've got my passive that I can put over here. Sometimes these get turned around, so you can right click and rotate those to kind of clean it up. And then I'm going to take this deck and I'm going to flip the entire thing over. I'm going to shuffle it a couple times, and then we're going to start the game and draw those cards up and learn how to play. So thanks for tuning. Thanks for listening. Hopefully this was pretty straightforward. You're going to find a lot of combinations in here. I'd say just grab what's cool, start out, give it a shot, and then as you learn a little bit more about the game, really dig in there and look through all these cards and see what you like and figure out what playstyle is best for you. Thanks again, guys. Talk to you soon.